Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: what are some ridiculous history facts? Ancient Romans would put sandals on the hands of sleeping people, then tickle their face so they would slap themselves. Etschu, brute. Ancient Romans were always up to some shit. Romans used to wash clothes in urine. Because urine contains ammonia, a powerful bleaching agent, ancient Romans used to wash their clothes in pee. At many street corners there were public urinals that men could use, and their contents were collected every day and brought to the laundries. Edits, formatting. They really were. When the Romans laid siege to Themyscira, a real place, weirdly enough, they attempted to tunnel into the city. The Themysciras released bears into the tunnels. Themyscira. Bright IT, that Wodawoma's hometown. Yeah, it totally was. Weirdly, a lot of Greek myths tell you real locations where myths happened. And their myths about the Amazons gave them a specific real city to base them in, which later the Romans conquered. Thus Tunnel Bear was invented. The Spartans never built a city wall, figuring that their reputation alone would mean no one would dare attack them. But, during the Persian War, the Persians, who had already burned Athens twice, hired a Greek guide to take them to Sparta. But when they got there, they saw a kinda crap-looking city without even a wall. They figured there was no way this place could be the mighty Sparta they had heard so much about. So they figured the Greek was lying, and thus Sparta was spared. Edit, I'm remembering this from reading it in the book Persian Fire by Tom Holland. It's quite possible that I'm misremembering details, or that Holland's text identifies this as a legend or story. Still, the book is a fantastic read and I heartily recommend it. This is Sparta. No, this is madness. I think there is also a story about a guy walking up to a Spartan soldier and asking him where do the borders of Sparta reach, and the soldier responded about here, gesturing to the end of his spear. Sparta was such an interesting experiment in bravado, bravery, and the strength to back it. Claudius Drusus died in AD 20 from asphyxiation when he tossed a pear in the air and caught it in his mouth. The pear tree was put on trial, found guilty of murder, and destroyed. 2 important questions. 1. How large was this man's throat? 2. How small was this pear? It might not be true. Suetonius tells us this story, and he lived more than 50 years after Claudius Drusus died. It's also totally possible that he was actually murdered by a man named Stores, who was a pretty notorious figure in the early empire. We will probably never know what really happened to him. A lot of high-profile deaths surrounding the royal family, for lack of a better term, from around this time that have wacky stories behind them, or at least there are suspicions, and there were suspicions at the time that their deaths weren't entirely natural. Heirs to the throne under Augustus and Tiberius had a habit of dying young. In ancient Egypt, servants were smeared with honey to attract flies away from the pharaoh. Oh god, that sounds awful. The heat, the stickiness, the buzzing all around you. That sounds like literal torture. I can't imagine they were very healthy with bug crawling all around them. But they got to keep the honey by the end of the day, something for the family to look forward to. That's so dumb. Why not just put the honey on a statue or something? I mean, you'd still need servants to carry the statue around, so just skip the middleman. I'm imagining this was for when they were out and about. Just think of all the honey trap me you would put out of a job. The first bomb dropped on Berlin by the British during WW2 claimed no human casualties. But it did kill an elephant. Never forget. There were 9 elephanta in Berlin Zoo at the start of WW2. At the end of the war, there was only one left, its name was Siam. Edit, didn't expect this to blow up. I've decided not to amend my typo u/Petalwolf. Edit 2, the pun was intentional. Loved reading your replies. Poor Siam. The elephant probably lost its family members. The Battle of Bull Run, during the American Civil War, was called the Picnic Battle, because so many civilians from Washington went on picnics on the sidelines and watched. But once the battle actually started, and the Union started to get its ass kicked, they all ran away, running over injured soldiers and dead bodies and generally disrupting the battle. This was actually a relatively common thing during the Civil War. I know it happened at Gettysburg too. Fucking tourist. War tourism is big business. It also happened at the Battle of Watlick Street in the year 61. The ICI were so confident they would defeat the Romans, they gathered round in their wagons to watch. When they were routed and had to fall back, the wagons blocked their path, and that's how Boudica was defeated. I thought the wagon thing was pretty standard for Celtic migratory war parties. Families stand behind the lines so that the warriors know retreat isn't an option. A Chinese emperor escaped an assassin by running around a pillar. After 2 hours, the assassin got bored and went home, and wasn't charged for his crimes. Just imagine. 20 minutes in, the assassin knows he looks ridiculous running around the same pillar this whole time, but he's kind of committed at this point. Besides, how much stamina could an emperor have, anyway? 40 minutes in, the assassin is wondering how much time an emperor has for CrossFit each week. An hour in, the assassin's still running in circles trying to catch the emperor, all the while thinking this is so stupid, this is so goddamn stupid. He is beginning to wonder if he was given this mission as a prank. 90 minutes in, the assassin knows with horrible certainty that whether he succeeds or fails he's going to be the laughingstock of the whole empire. 2 hours in, both he and the emperor are still wheezing their way around the pillar. The assassin is not only tired and completely humiliated, but also realizes that he's in no shape to be able to run away after the assassination now, and figures his best bet is to give up and hope the emperor sees the humor in the whole situation. Meanwhile, the emperor is sitting quietly on the top of the pillar, eating ramen and watching the assassin running around and around chasing the tail end of his own cloak. He actually did get away. Jing, the assassin, failed in the attempt. The emperor ran around the pillar until he had an opportunity to draw his sword out of his extraordinarily large and unpractical ropes to then injure the leg of Jing. After this, the emperor got enough distance to Jing so that the guards could IPRISO him. There was a no weapon near the emperor policy, so the guards didn't dare to come closer to rescue him. Edit, thanks for this correction. Apparently there wasn't a 2-hour chase around a pillar. I am yet to find out what was instead. Also, we gotta bear in mind this was 200 BC. The sources are probably a little blurry when it comes to accuracy, although Wikipedia does seemingly look quite detailed on this topic. There was a no weapon near the emperor policy, so the guards didn't dare to come closer to rescue him. Kinda like that if you are late, you get the death penalty general, which instead decided to revolt. At one time there was not only a pope and an antipope but also a counter-antipope. There still is an antipope in a sense today. The Palmyra Catholic Church split from the main one in the 70s and claim their pope is the real pope. They also see Hitler as a saint, so they are not the most sane bunch. They what? Not to defend these lunatics, but in the interest of truth, they do not consider Hitler a saint. They do consider Franco to be one, however. If a pope and an antipope meet, do they annihilate each other? That's why there's a counter-antipope. At US President Andrew Jackson's funeral in 1845, his pet parrot had to be removed because it was swearing. Edit, lots of interest. Looks like someone went ahead and birthed a subreddit that's dedicated to TR stories. Join us over at /r/Teddy Stories for more. There are a few pretty common stories about Theodore Roosevelt that get circulated on Reddit fairly regularly. Over the past few years, I've become, in some ways, addicted with the 26th president and his more than fascinating life. To the chagrin of all my family and friends, I've taken it upon myself to read as much as I possibly can about the man and share some of the lesser-known stories with them. So here are some of my favorite. Also, currently at work, so these are mostly from memory. Also sorry for posting the same story twice, writing in a Google Doc then copying it over so work doesn't think I'm diddling on Reddit all day. Other TR enthusiasts, please let me know if anything's wrong and I'll update. Here's one. During the 1901 Republican nominations, TR was unanimously voted to be the vice president except for one vote his own. He was adamant about not becoming the VP because he claimed, it is a stepping stone to nothing but oblivion. The big Republican bosses figured he could actually do the least amount of damage as the VP because every other role TR ended up in he would make it powerful and gain more popularity. Senator Hanna said to McKinley when TR became the VP that your only duty to the country is to live for 4 years. McKinley was, of course, shot and killed, making TR the youngest president ever to serve the nation. One more. Not many people knew about his relationship with the Emperor of the Badlands, Atwa Amédée Marie Vincent Maca de Vallombrosa, the Marquis de Moors, a Frenchman who wanted to gain the throne in France and was raising money by doing all sorts of schemes in the Dakotas. He nearly challenged TR to a duel and TR confided to his friend that he would have chosen long rifles at 7 paces because the Marquis was a better duelist. The Marquis quickly backed off because the long rifle at 7 paces would put the barrel against each of their chests. While also in the Badlands, his boat was stolen and he famously tracked the robbers down after a harrowing 3 days on the nearly frozen Little Missouri River. Once he found these men, he disarmed them and captured them. They were a known group and wanted all around the country. Now TR could have hung them on the spot, but he insisted they get proper justice and instead carted them 150 miles to the nearest town. During this trek, he became friends with the bandit leader and exchanged books and thoughts on the books the men had. TR stayed awake, watching the men for nearly 4 days straight, and returned them to the proper authorities. He received $50 and was technically a bounty hunter. I can't remember exactly, but I don't think any of them were hung. He would also read a book a day while president, and could memorize entire passages and pages. This was amazingly helpful because he would plan a meeting, read about the subject, and become an expert on the matter almost overnight. Edit: people are asking for more. So here's one more. While exploring the River of Doubt, a completely ludicrous adventure in itself, TR contracted malaria and had a high fever for a few days. Prior in the expedition, TR made everyone promise that if anyone was sick or injured that they wouldn't jeopardize the safety of the rest of the group and leave them behind. Well, no one could justify leaving TR behind, so they carried him along. At one point, he became so sick that he began deliriously repeating this line over and over again for days, "In Zardu, did Kubla Khan, a stately pleasure dome decree." It was the opening line to a poem, where the next line read, "Where Elf the sacred river ran, through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea." This is from memory, I'm on mobile so it might not be perfect. I have a bunch more if people are interested. The Library of Congress recently released his presidential trove of letters. TR wrote over 250,000 letters, and none of these are transposed. I've been going through, finding the coolest ones, transcribing them, and recording them. I've discovered some awesome stories after reading nearly 7,000 of them. Here's a funny one where Roosevelt is criticizing President Wilson for not fighting in World War I. Edit: one last one. You guys are making my day. It's literally my favorite hobby to drink a beer and tell these stories. TR had a really great relationship with Booker Washington, a Southern black professor, who TR invited to the White House and became the first black man to ever dine there. TR, as you can imagine, got a lot of backlash for this, and Washington sent a clipping from the Baltimore Herald that recounted a true story of his, Washington's, encounter with an elderly Southern colonel. It went as follows. "Sir, I am glad to meet you," the colonel said. "Always wanted to shake your hand, sir. I think, sir, you're the greatest man in America." Washington modestly replied that he thought President Roosevelt was the greatest man in America. "No, sir," roared the old man, "not by a jugful. I used to think so, but since he invited you to dinner, I think he's a scoundrel." Roosevelt was vastly amused by this story and stated, "I think that is one of the most delightful things I have ever read. It is almost too good to be true. Can I subscribe to TR Facts?"